In our episodes, we discuss cases and topics that might be distressing or disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. In 1997, Connie Ruddy disappeared from her home without a trace. 2 years later, a jawbone discovered miles away confirmed her death but offered few clues about what really happened to her. For more than 2 decades, her case has remained cold, until October of 2025, when investigators returned to her home to search for new evidence. It's a reminder that seemingly cold cases are never truly closed, and that one new lead, or one person willing to speak up, can change everything. Let's get started. On the morning of February 10th, 1997, around 10:30 a.m., a woman, let's call her Jen as her name is not reported, got to her friend Connie Ruddy's home in Ida Grove, Iowa. Now, most articles don't specifically mention why she was there. One article says she was there to drop her kids off for Connie to babysit. But either way, Jen arrives and goes inside the house, and Connie's car was in the driveway, so I just imagine it being my own friend's house where you just walk right in. Jen gets inside though, and Connie isn't there. Now, like I said, her car was outside, but she's not in the house, which might not raise red flags right away, but Connie's 2 children were there alone. And these weren't, young teens where they could be left alone. Connie had a 2-year-old daughter and a 3-month-old baby boy. Now, all reports say that though the kids were left alone, they were totally fine and unharmed. I don't know where they were found in the home, like if they were still sleeping or whatever, but from what I've seen, her family believed Connie hadn't been gone long because of the, quote, condition the kids were in. So my guess is the baby didn't have, an oversoiled diaper, they didn't seem hungry, nothing like that. Now, I could imagine you get inside, you see that Connie isn't there, her kids are there, so you start looking all over the house for her, looking outside, in the backyard, wherever. But Connie was nowhere to be found. Even more concerning, Connie's purse was still in the home, so it's not seeming like she maybe just left to go walk to a convenience store to buy something really quick. And looking on Google Maps, Connie's home is just a few blocks from some downtown businesses. Not that this would be a responsible thing to do with 2 children, but this was the 90s, and, not to throw my own mom under the bus, but I will. She told me once she left me in my crib as a kid to run to the store. So, it happens. But unlike my own mother, Connie was regarded as a very responsible, albeit young mother. She was 21 years old and was a full-time stay-at-home mother. Her family has said she would never willingly leave her children. So pretty soon after Jen gets to the home and finds the kids unattended, one article published by Frank Santiago in the Des Moines Register on April 18th, 1997, says that Connie's mother also got to the home. Connie's mother, Mary Newmayer, said she got a call, I am assuming, that same morning from Connie's boyfriend. Mary said Connie's boyfriend, who was in jail at the time, thought something was wrong and asked Mary to check on the home. Now, a comment in the article says the boyfriend might have been concerned because he was unable to get a hold of Connie. So Mary heads over to the house. Jen's already there, presumably caring for the kids and looking for Connie. And it's around this time that they call police to report Connie missing. In terms of what we know about Connie's last known movements, the people close to her, there's really not a lot to go off of. What we know is that she was last seen in her home just 2 days prior, on February 8th around 11 p.m. by her sister. One other article says she was also last seen around 5 p.m. on February 9th, so the day before her disappearance, but that was only reported once that I could find. Her father, Gary, had also spoken to her just days before that and said there was nothing out of the ordinary that stuck out to him during that conversation. And now, as far as people close to her, let's look at her significant other. Like I mentioned previously, Connie's mother apparently received a phone call that morning from her boyfriend who was in jail at the time, who was worried because he couldn't get a hold of her. That little bit of information about the boyfriend is the only time I have ever seen this mentioned. About her having a boyfriend in jail, nothing. I don't know his name. I don't know why he was in jail. I don't know what their relationship was like. Nothing. Some things that would be really helpful to know would be the nature of their relationship, right? If friends and family viewed it as healthy, I'd obviously want to know why the boyfriend was in jail. It could be nothing major, but if it was something bigger, did that impact Connie, if at all? Was the boyfriend routinely in jail? Was he there for a long time? Did he associate himself with some people that were maybe not so stand-up members of society? I would also want to know her routine. According to this one bit in the Des Moines Register, the boyfriend was worried because he hadn't heard from her. So was that the routine that they had? Did she call him every day, every other day? Did she visit him in person? Was this departure in her routine enough to make him worry so much that he called her mom? Or was it something else? Did she mention something to him on the phone that had him worried? There's just a lot of questions I have about this boyfriend, but like I said, this is only reported on once that I've been able to find. Now, there is another man in Connie's life, and that's her husband. And before you side-eye here, they were going through a divorce, which I do suppose lends itself to some side-eyes in the case of a missing person. Connie was married to a man named Connie Ruddy, who was in the Army, and based on everything I've read, he was stationed in Fort Lewis in Tacoma, Washington at the time of her disappearance. And like I said, the two were going through a divorce. And let me just say, I have basically all of the same questions about him as I do with this supposed boyfriend. Purely from an investigative perspective, right? Was it confirmed that he was in Washington State at the time of her disappearance? I am assuming so. He was eventually notified of her disappearance, and he came back to assume custody of their 2-year-old daughter. Connie's parents then cared for the 3-month-old son. And Shad eventually was discharged from the Army and moved back to Iowa. But there's really just not a lot reported about her husband, the nature of their relationship, why they were going through a divorce, or why he was discharged from the Army, right? Was this just a routine end of his service commitment? Was it a medical discharge? Something else? But in the reporting on this case, neither the husband or the boyfriend are ever mentioned as though they are viewed as suspicious by investigators. And again, they are hardly mentioned at all. But otherwise, what is reported about the scene is that there was nothing indicating a struggle took place, which makes me believe she either went outside with someone she knew or at least opened the door, and if someone took her, they didn't get inside. So there's very, very little reported about her last known movements and the people close to her that you'd likely investigate first. But what I do know is that in the days following Connie's disappearance, the community really came together to help search for her. Volunteers from the community, family, friends, law enforcement, and groups from both South Dakota and Nebraska came to assist in the search. Dogs were brought in to try to identify where she might have gone after leaving the home, if she got in a car, if she left on foot, something. Searchers started around her home and slowly started expanding outward. But search after search, week after week, there was no sign of Connie. Investigators weren't ruling out anything at that point, but mentioned there was nothing to go on. There was nothing to immediately suggest foul play, but also not a lot to suggest that she left of her own free will. Her family, though, remained committed to finding any trace of her. And even though the searches were turning up nothing, they did consider this to be good news. They were firm in their belief that she was still alive out there. So if the search turned up nothing, that was good news to them. Over time, local news reported on Connie's disappearance less and less. But on November 28, 1997, news broke that a body had been found, and it put everyone on edge. According to an article by Jennifer Palmer in the Sioux City Journal, a body had been found near Washita, Iowa, just near the Idah County line, which was just over half an hour from Connie's home. Woodbury County Emergency Services personnel were called to the location, and just hours after that, the Iowa Department of Criminal Investigation asked the Idah County Medical Examiner, Dr. Carl Tobin, for permission to take the body to Sioux City for an autopsy. Tobin didn't see the body himself, but was told it was partially decomposed. The gender of the body wasn't immediately released, and many officials, including Tobin, wondered if it was Connie Ruddy. I can't imagine the pain and anxiety and worry of having your loved one be missing, and then to receive word that a body had been found, and then you just have to wait to hear word on who it is. But just days later, it was revealed that the remains did not belong to Connie. The remains were that of 38-year-old Dung Kim Trung, a woman who had been reported missing on September 22nd of 1997, so just about 2 months before her remains were discovered. For Trung, she was last seen leaving the Ameristar Casino in Council Bluffs around 6:30 p.m., and she was with an unidentified Asian man. According to an article in the Sioux City Journal published on December 2nd, 1997, Trung had called her boyfriend in Omaha before leaving the casino to let him know that she was getting a ride home from this guy. And this guy, presumably the Asian male she was last seen with, needed directions and actually spoke to Trung's boyfriend on the phone. But she never made it home. And to my knowledge, they never found this unidentified Asian man. And to this day, Trung's case remains unsolved. I will have to save Trung's story for another episode because her case deserves answers as well. The news, though, that the remains were not that of Connie was maybe some sort of bittersweet relief to her family, but also a reminder that there were no leads, no clues as to what happened to her. Authorities hoped that the discovery of Trung's remains and the reminder that Connie was still missing might reinvigorate searches for her. But again, we see months go by with no news, and reporting on her case is minimal in 1998. In April, investigators searched some gravel pits in Sac County. This search included a team of 12 divers who searched the floor of 2 large ponds at the site. The Idah County Sheriff's Deputy Kevin Frank said, "We're exploring some rumors, and this one kept coming up. They came up with nothing, though, so we can dispel that rumor." Searches continued for Connie, searching abandoned farm areas, county parks, roads, but nothing came up. Then, on Tuesday, August 31st, 1999, there was another discovery. Around 7:45 a.m., a fossil hunter was canoeing on the Boyer River between Dunlap and Doe City in Crawford County, Iowa, and spotted something that caught his eye. Now, before you ask about the fossil hunting, this is absolutely something people do in Iowa. I don't know if it's a very widespread activity, but there are multiple places where people can go specifically to fossil hunt. I have done it myself, so it's definitely a thing. So he sees something while canoeing and likely thinks and hopes it's a fossil, but when he gets to it, he finds what looks like a human jawbone. I don't know how much of the mandible was there, but he was sure enough that he actually brought it to the Crawford County Sheriff's Office. They, in turn, brought it to the medical examiner, who confirmed it was a human jawbone. Authorities quickly treated the scene as a crime scene. One official was quoted as saying, "Because you can't go back and secure the crime scene, you get one bite at that apple. If you blow it, you can't go back and say, 'Let's start over.'" The fossil hunter brought authorities to where he found it, and investigators get to the scene. They even have the National Guard come in, plus a forensic anthropologist to search the area. They look 3 miles upstream, 3 miles downstream, but they find nothing else. Some reports right around when the mandible was found say that there were more bones found, but other articles published later say no other bones were found, so my guess is if they did find bones, they were quickly ruled out as not being human. Connie's family was notified that there was a discovery of a human jawbone, and it does seem that almost immediately, authorities wondered or suspected that it might belong to her. And on Thursday, September 2nd, it was confirmed by comparing dental records that the jawbone belonged to Connie. I can't imagine the devastation. Connie's father, Gary, was quoted as saying, "This is not the outcome we wanted." Throughout all of the reporting on the searches for Connie, her family held on so firmly to their hope and belief that she was still alive. So reading about the finding of her partial remains was really just devastating. And I know for some families that have gone through something similar, the discovery, especially after multiple years of no answers, can be somewhat of a relief that at least you have one answer, the answer of where your loved one is. But in Connie's case, which was now being moved from a missing person investigation to a homicide investigation, they really didn't even have that answer. To this day, the rest of her remains have never been found. They ruled her death a homicide, but no cause of death was able to be determined. There was no immediate sign of injury to the jawbone. The discovery really put them no closer to understanding what happened to her on February 10th, 1997. Connie's family held a funeral for her and buried the little that was recovered, and their search for answers continued. On September 18th, 1999, a small article was published in the Sioux City Journal by Beth Bach Williams, who helped with so many of the searches for Connie. And this article read, "Help solve Connie Ruddy's murder. Please help solve this mystery. Perhaps it's your neighbor, friend, or an acquaintance. Someone has the answer. For 2.5 years, the family of Connie Ruddy has been in search of her whereabouts. Imagine the feeling of frustration, helplessness, when they desperately look for answers and continue to find no clues to Connie's disappearance and consequently her death. Such a tragic ending to the mother of 2 small children. All hopes of finding Connie Ruddy alive have ended, but the question of who is responsible for her death continues. Your help is needed. Whether it be considered a small bit of information or an anonymous phone call to the Ida County authorities, Connie's family has the right to the truth and final justice. I write this appeal with deep emotion and compassion for Connie's family, for I have also experienced this horrendous tragedy. Without the help of many people, my sister Julie may have never been found nor her killer incarcerated." Signed, Beth Bach Williams, sister of Julia K. Bach, Lamar's murder victim. Despite knowing Connie was deceased and the investigation now being treated as a homicide, years went by with no new developments. Connie's parents continued to speak out, hoping to keep her case in the public eye in hopes new information would come in. Gary told KTIV in an interview, quote, "The one thing they've told us, they'll never close the case. It will always be open until they do find out what happened to her." Her case received a little attention over the years, features on the anniversary of her disappearance, a write-up highlighting her case along with other Iowa cold cases. Reward money was raised and posted periodically, but for decades, there were no major breaks. Until just this October, as in October of 2025, where there was news. No arrests, no suspects that we know of, but state law enforcement actually conducted a search of her home, almost 30 years later. The DCI said that newly discovered case information and advancements in forensic technology, quote, revealed details which necessitated a search of Connie Ruddy's former home. Now, the search took place on October 9th, 2025, and included criminalists from the DCI lab, special agents from the Major Crimes Unit, and members of the Ida County Sheriff's Office. The DCI also said in a statement that, quote, despite the nearly 29-year time lapse, searchers were able to identify and seize several items of interest from the now vacant home. The items were taken to the DCI laboratory for advanced forensic analysis. Now, there hasn't been any news on what those items were, if the testing's been done yet, or if anything has come of it. But it always just warms my heart and brings me so much excitement that even after so many years, huge moves can be made in these cases. You never know what little piece of information or what new advancement in technology could move a case forward and bring the closure that's needed. And that's where we are today. And that's what I'm asking you. Do you know someone who knew Connie? Did you know her yourself? Have you found something or remembered a detail that always nagged at you? Did you hear someone mention something about her? No piece of information is too small. It's time to report it and bring closure to Connie's family. Connie's daughter, 2 years old at the time of her disappearance, now an adult married with a child of her own, said in a KTIV interview in 2022 that there isn't a day that goes by where she doesn't think about her mom, wishing she could be there to watch her granddaughter grow up, that growing up without a mother is the hardest thing she has gone through. She said she has little memory of her mother, but lives through the stories told by those who knew her. Connie Ruddy was a young mother. She loved her children. She was responsible and kind-hearted, and those who knew her said she would do anything for her family and would never hurt anyone. If you have any information at all, no matter how small or insignificant, you can report it to authorities or anonymously, and I will have contact information in the show notes of this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cardinal Crimes. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing, giving us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast, and sharing this episode with others. You can find us on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram with the handle @CardinalCrimes, and you can send us any case suggestions, questions, or topics you would like covered there or to our email, cardinalcrimes@gmail.com. Until next time, friends, take care of each other and take care of yourself. If you've ever thought about starting your own podcast, there's no better place to begin than with Buzzsprout. It's the platform I use, and it makes publishing, promoting, and tracking your episodes so easy, even if you're not tech savvy. Plus, they help you get listed in all the major directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. And here's the best part. When you sign up for a paid Buzzsprout plan using my affiliate link, you'll get $20 off, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. Just head to the description of this episode to find the affiliate link. Now, let's get back to the episode.